Josh, if you found yourself with something in your pocket that you were not supposed to have at school, what would you do? And he goes, I'd give it to my bus driver right away. Well, what does that tell you about the role of bus drivers? My son loved his teachers and his principals and so forth, but he loved his bus driver. And so if you think about that, I think it's a badge of honor that the bus driver had a relationship with the kids, that could happen in a safe environment. So Josh played baseball. My daughter Kate was softball, ended up doing pole vaulting, and so she was a track. Josh was baseball, golf. Head coaches here. And so my daughter would often talk about the relationship she had with that one teacher who inspired her to go above and beyond and do better than what she thought she could do. So today I use those quick examples because as a former community member and somebody who really enjoyed their work here in Fluvanna, and I'm just so appreciative of the opportunity I had to grow and develop as a leader. My children gave me a different perspective on the value of people and the educators in their lives. So today, just very quickly, I've already met with Pete and Andre, and we had a wonderful conversation. We talked a little bit about our goals for today. We talked a little bit about the information I would share. And having done a little bit of this with other school boards in various settings, I think the coldest day of the 2026 winter, I was doing this with the school board in Central Virginia, and I got out of the we finished the meeting up, people said their thank yous, and I put my 2 coats on, my gloves, my hat, and I went out, and I could not open the door in my truck because it was frozen. I mean, I think it was the coldest day of the year in Central Virginia, literally. And I think about that today in contrast to how beautiful it is here and such great weather to be a part of this. So I'm just going to talk a little bit. This is kind of a 2-part thing too. So I want you to have in mind with the long view, right? We always look at the short-term agenda, but we keep the long view in mind that I'd like to come back and revisit this, and this can happen. What is this? Gosh, August, school's starting. We can come back in the winter, hopefully not the coldest day in Central Virginia again, but we can come back next summer, whenever. Pete, did you tell me, if I remember this correctly, it's been 6 years since the school board had a retreat? Approximately.
I know that it's been before my time,
okay,
which is 5.
Charles, have you had any retreats in your 20 years?
It was prior to Pete being here, and I didn't go to it, so I don't know exactly how long it was.
Okay, so approximately, we'll say approximately 6 years. So this is kind of a 2-part thing, and the second part is by invitation if you want me to come back, so I don't go where I'm not like that I don't enjoy and you don't enjoy some of this. So some of it is a little sit and get today, some of it is a review, and some of it is interaction, and you're going to talk about your house that you're building here in Fluvanna before we end today. But the most important part is Pete tells me lunch is going to be served, and Brandy, you said is around noon?
Yes, sir.
All right, so we have a little bit of time together. We're going to move forward. So again, my goal is for you to laugh a little bit, connect, strengthen bonds as a group, and I think what you read earlier was very appropriate, Andre. So why do we do this? So Charles said it was before Pete got here. If you've ever been a member of another board, whether that be formal or informal, why do we do this? I've heard what Andre said. I've heard Pete talk about a little bit of this in the orientation. I've heard people who work in the central office, school board office setting talk about how potentially this could be good, not in a negative way, just very affirmative. And we're like, I think this is great. We don't have anything to be approved today. We don't have to put together an agenda. So why do we do this? Why do you use things? Now this is popcorn, right? When I say popcorn, just pop up an answer, say it. There's nobody recording this for negative reasons, but why do we do this? And we're not going around the tables. What do you think? Why do we do this? If you've ever been a member of a church board or a recreation board or a Boys and Girls Club board or a Rotarian board or the Lions Club,
I think broadly retreats are used as a leverage point to move away from doing like the business of the day and to find like Rousseauian common ground between one another. So like what is it about the role that we play on this board and what we believe for the future of our division that is shared amongst us. And I'll note that like over the year, like us not having retreats in the past is not an accident. These things like retreats aren't exogenous. They don't like appear one day and then you go to them. They're driven from internal political dynamics. And there has been and there is significant dissonance between board members in the way that we ultimately see the future of our division or the role of finance in schools or the role of what a board member on a school board is versus a board of supervisors. Like those dissonances exist today and they have for this board over its many permutations that I've been on for 7 years. And so, you know, I suppose the notion is that retreats allow us to sort of like identify those, but also identify sort of the common ground so we can maybe move forward with more of a shared purpose.
also there are no right or wrong answers today.
All my answers are right.
I would like to give you that
to the
safety
discipline.
of saying what's on your mind and talking. And this is really about sharing and connecting, forming stronger bonds. So, you know, as I drove through by Pleasant Grove this morning, I was thinking back to when that was purchased. And I was thinking, remember that? There was quite a bit of feedback that was given to people when that was purchased, as in, why in the world are we not? I was looking at that as an investment. Somebody asked me, and I said, I think that is a long-range concept that will bear fruit in the future. Like, boy, talking about not stepping in anything politically, that was a statement, just a general statement, but wow, whatever you thought about the purchase of that property at the time, look at it now. It's pretty amazing. So, why meet as a board? Why have a retreat or a development session? Anyone else?
Yeah, I don't know if you want to hear from me.
Of course
right
I
now,
do.
board members,
Of course
and
I do.
invite you to tell me when you don't. I'm just thinking about obviously I've never been on a school board, but other boards I've been on, I think there are different reasons. Some of us are asked to run for a board or asked to sit on a board. Other people are compelled maybe to pursue a seat because of a particular issue or a concern or a passion. And I do want to say, we did have a retreat scheduled a couple of years ago, I think, and we had of all things, we had a bomb threat.
Yes.
It kept us from actually having it. But to me, I think it's just, when I have been on different boards, I haven't always known why I'm there. I'm not suggesting these board members don't know why they're here, but sometimes I know I've been asked to sit on boards. I think about the YMCA in Goochland and really didn't know what we were doing until I got on there and kind of figured it out. But I think a day like this enables us all to maybe just clarify, what are we doing together? What's the work we're doing? Where are we headed? Where are we going? My time, I've said this before in open session, so there's nothing I wouldn't say again. My time interviewing with this board was, there was a real energy in that conversation for me. I think particularly of the second one, where I was asked to come in and do a presentation about something. I think the prompt was something you want to change. Do a 10-minute presentation. We had this really amazing conversation about the direction of the schools and what we wanted things to look like in classrooms. And just the heart of pedagogy, teaching, learning, culture, the way our schools would feel. And I felt like there were board members that said, I'm not putting words in their mouth, there were people that said, like, the only thing we've ever agreed on as a board was that vision.
Yeah, I feel like that's my quote, and I'm happy to own it. Yeah, I think that one of the things that this board has agreed on more than anything else is both your leadership and also your strategic vision for the future.
Yeah, thank you. And I guess the reason I'm bringing that up is we rarely have had an opportunity, or from my standpoint, the board has really had an opportunity to revisit those conversations where everybody's kind of was resonating. And I know not everybody was in the room at that time, which makes it even more valuable to have the conversation again.
So I heard Sean is new, and then is Anthony new?
Yes.
Anthony,
Yeah. And so, just so everybody knows, I will be working with Anthony one-on-one. I could never cover him in basketball, so forget that, right? I'll be working with him on this board information, and I'll be sharing it not like this, but in ways that it's certainly consumable and will tie him into your work. So thank you for that. Anybody else? Why do we do this?
Yeah, that was one reason why I thought it was important, because I knew Anthony and Sean was new, and I think that would help them, us become a better board by having a retreat. And I think one of the things when I became chair, I told Dr. Gretz I really wanted to get back to his vision, the reason why he thought Fluvanna was a place he wanted to retire at. I thought I've been on the board before, I think we had really got away from that.
Well, we've been a little busy.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And give yourself a little grace in there, and I have hopefully a slide here in a few minutes that'll talk about that. Board members are busy professionals. I haven't met a board member yet that isn't juggling numerous things. Setting aside time is an investment. As you can tell, I don't read slides to you. I don't want to ever do that. It's valuable for cohesiveness, awareness, and appreciation for one another. And then this ongoing commitment to professional training, sharing, visioning. Some people call it visioning. And we're going to talk a little bit about what you have on your website, which I hope is reflective of what guides you currently. Piggybacking on what Pete said, but I think this is a good way to summarize why we're doing this. And we could go on, most of the morning talking about, I did this one time and it didn't go very well. There was a person they brought in from somewhere and they weren't very funny, or they didn't have a grounding in what education's all about. I can tell you I am a very pragmatic instructor at the graduate level. And when I say pragmatic, I teach and focus on things that are going to matter in the lives of kids and other people that are faculty members and staff and assistant principals, etc. So I'm very pragmatic when it comes to the idea of what we're sharing with the future. So maybe this can be agreed upon as a shared goal today. I love this, right? Excellence through good governance. Excellence through good governance. Somebody said one time, well, what do you mean by excellence? Somebody can say, Charles is in the construction business. Somebody could say, well, I had my new carpet installed, what do you think? And his idea of excellence could be very different than, and I don't mean to pick on carpet installers, but it could have been a botched job, and he would come in and say, man, I don't know who you got to do this, but I can do a better job than this, and here's some things we can do to improve. But that's his area of expertise, right? So in thinking about excellence, it's the quality of being outstanding at something. Nobody wants an average school division. Nobody wants to be on an average board. People don't want to waste their time today, because as we learned in the other slide, you're juggling a lot of things. You are committed individuals. You are valued in the role that you play, and people expect you to be a visionary. They expect you to have a commitment to the kids. They expect a commitment to quality compensation and benefits. Just add that list up. There could be 100 things on that list they expect of you, but we don't want to be just average. We want to be outstanding. So here we go. I told you we'd play a little bit about COVID. Rodney Dangerfield, I went to a fight the other night and a hockey game broke out. And this other guy goes, I went to a hockey game the other night and a school board meeting broke out. So mask, no mask. Who can remember that? Oh my gosh. Talking about this era that we went through. And that started right when you got here, is that right?
We were just sort of in the middle of it.
And this is just not Fluvanna. This is everywhere, folks. This is everywhere. So in reflection, you've been through a lot. Of course, Sean and Anthony have just joined the team, and so they're thinking, gosh, I'm glad I got by that. Anybody remember this, right? Everybody had an opinion. I was talking with someone out in the hallway. They were talking about COVID and the stress that it put on families and the quality of instruction, the idea of were you present in the classroom when the computer was on, or did you check in and take attendance and then check out? You've been through a lot with COVID. So I would say give yourself a break on it. And something that I talk about a lot, schools reflect the community and the society that we live in as a whole. There is no debate about this. What's happening in the community affects schools. What happens in schools affects the community. So I honor you for your commitment and the idea that you as a group can work together to shape that future, right? Through visioning, strategic planning, a new mission statement, a new vision statement, whatever that is. By coming to a school board meeting, by being on committees, one committee after teaching school finance, everybody avoids the school finance committee, right? Unless you're a financial person or a data person. We're like, just give people a raise and move on. Well, it's not that simple anymore. Because there are upgrades that we need to do to our schools that are brick and mortar, our technology, are centered on things that we need to do to keep up with society that are what we call hidden costs. And here's another one. So everyone has an opinion on how to run schools. As a school board member, you're often tasked with having the answers, and sometimes you're relegated to just listening, right? Here's the same furry cartoon that I was able to pull up and talk about this. So what do you think about this era that you were in and this new era outside of it? Are you relieved that all that's over? Is it less stressful? I've already heard you say we look forward to doing something together to better the schools, but any thoughts on that before I move off of this idea of COVID? Very difficult. I'll just say from my perspective, it's very difficult. Anybody else?
Sorry, is your question whether or not we're relieved that we're past?
Yeah, how do you feel about it?
I mean, remarkably burdened, right? So like, it's not as though we had COVID, it was a discrete thing and then it went away. Our students' learning loss is gonna last a generation. There are littles who learned to read or didn't learn to read on computer screens. So I think it both illuminated, underlying, and brought to the forefront fairly discussing identity politics as like the way that we view discourse for school boards, and then it burdened our children with stunted development in early years. So I would say that we sort of forget or move past it at our own peril, given what our kids suffered through.
Yeah. So I pulled out the little thing that says anxiety. So you felt anxiety now that we're beyond it because of the repercussion.
I'm not sure that quite represents how I feel about it.
Keep sharing. Keep going.
Oh, okay. So I feel like anxiety is an emotional response to the dynamics there, and I don't think that I was articulating anxiety per se. I think that it has reshaped the challenges that we have and the way that we need to redistribute our attention and our budget and the interventions that we need to have pedagogically for our students. So it's reshaped the information and the demand constructs that we have as educators writ large. So I would say that while sure, like unknown can equal anxiety, like no, we know what happened and we know where we're headed and we know what our kids need, and finding ways to fill those gaps is incumbent on us. So it's less, as an individual, it's less about an emotional response, which might be human but doesn't solve problems, to like making sure that remains in our context setting when we think about the direction of the school division. So it's not about anxiety, it's about the fact that we have a lot of work to do and we need to make sure that it's aligned with what our kids experience.
Okay. So perhaps I misinterpreted when I threw this out as a discussion topic, I think it's valuable to understand, and with your comments, I'll move forward on that, that the idea is that it did occur. We actually know some things happened that we need to get beyond now. And there's some trepidation, there's some struggle with aligning all the things that we need to align moving forward. Fair enough, got it. Anybody else?
Sorry, I didn't mean to be sticky or
No,
thorny
it's okay.
there. I just wanted to make
It's
sure
okay.
that I was articulating what I
Understood.
intended to.
Understand. Anybody else?
I would say, James and I were the only ones on the board at that time. He and I probably disagreed on viewpoints about that, but I saw my grandchildren going to school in Buckingham with masks on. The littlest one, by the time he got home in the afternoon, he had chewed a hole through his mask. It was wet, it was soggy, it was nasty, yeah. But,
Those are things you don't forget.
yeah,
I mean, it's kind of in your brain.
I bet he hadn't forgotten, yeah.
Anybody else?
I just, I had a kid that went through it. I remember at first it was cool, but then after a couple of weeks it wasn't cool. That, they wanted to be in school with interaction with their classmates.
Anyone else?
No, I agree with everybody's point. Outside looking in, I think time will tell the social impact of these kids. And I think we're just starting to see the first lines of that, with the ages. And because you have those kids that were going into high school or middle school, now they're going out, finishing up college, going into the workforce, still struggling with some social aspects of things. It showed, and not just this board, across the country, it showed huge delineations in where somebody, you may, hey, the budget was pretty easy this year, but it kind of aligns on it, we're good to go, and then you start pivoting with morals and ethics and political affiliations, and it got crazy. And to your point, 2 weeks in, we're like, all right, this is good. And it just kept going and getting worse and worse and worse. And I was, goodness, not good.
Yeah, and in the meantime, we were asking parents and other people to be the primary educator in person when my daughter taught, believe this or not, some kindergarten students over Zoom. How she pulled that off is beyond me. The principal called her on Zoom and said, I don't know what you're doing, but keep doing it. We're going to add more kids to your class. They love it. And my daughter's like, Dad, listen to your principal. I'm not your supervisor. Sounds like you're doing some cool things. Imagine anything more difficult than teaching kindergartners over Zoom. But, we were in that situation. We did the best we could. Educators were asked to do things that, in an era of ambiguity that really still today impact us.
But you look at everyone's experience with it was so incredibly different. My family, I had no children. My wife and I are both essential personnel, and
Yeah.
life was normal. We just went to work every day and came home, and went to work every day and came home. Work was exponentially more stressful there at the moment, but then we would just come home, and it was just the two of us with our dog. It wasn't. And and I bring it up in meetings all the time, is this COVID baby boom that's coming. Everybody you talk to, they have that 5 to 3 year, I have 2 COVID babies. I genuinely believe we're going to see an influx in student populations, and we're going to see trending growth from this, again, half jokingly calling it a COVID baby boom.
And what we're hearing from you, to summarize in ways, there's some trepidation, there's some thinking that we're going to have to adjust to in terms of socialization, demographic, budgetary things that maybe we hadn't thought of. And I think it's really okay to back up just a second and give yourselves a little break on this. Even with the superintendent, during COVID, This is Brandy. I see you're ready for the school board meeting tonight. He's got his armor on, right? I'm the man. I'm the person who can take it, sling the arrows at me. Not really. Pete is like a Timex watch. He just keeps on ticking. For those in the audience who know what a Timex watch is, I don't wear jewelry anymore, but I know what a watch is and I know what a Timex is. They just keep on ticking, right? So, and here's the school board, right? I'm talking with Andre. He said, I struggle with getting them in from recess. Not really. Again, I try to use humor as a way to get people to think and relax and so forth. So, in review and in preparation for this, I can't go on just my memory of Fluvanna, what it was at one time, but what it is now is most important to what we're doing today. So this is what you currently have posted. These are things, whether they're minute by minute up to date, whether they are a true reflection, this is what I see. There is a message that you belong here and that you are not focused on just the minimum requirements. Vibrant learning, personalized education, students' passions and talents are maximized. Basically, you're saying you give autonomy to your educators to get outside the box and make learning fun. What a great statement right there. You have released people from the stress of a lot of things when you say that. And you expect great things of all students, not just one group, not just where you live, not what your name is, but all students. Have you read this recently? Do you guys think about this? Yeah, I'm sure you do. You guys all probably wrote this. How old is this? Do you know?
I'm gonna guess it's about 3 years probably, right when we were doing our strategic plan, I remember doing this.
You knew there's a question followed up, right? There's a follow-up question. Do you still believe that? And is that still what's going on? It's not a trick question, it's just something to think about. It's what's posted before us.
I mean, it's certainly a North Star,
Oh, okay.
meaning like what we aspire to. Do we think that our teachers feel like they have all the autonomy in the world? Probably not at all. I mean, we still have like business to do and requirements from the state, and
Yeah.
so like you can't freeform all classroom experiences. Do all of our students feel like they belong here? No, absolutely not. Are all of our learning centers vibrant? Some, maybe not all. Depends on how well we're taking care of our building and the environment that we set up. So like from a North Star, should this be what we're doing and or is this where we're headed? Dear God, I hope so, but like, is it representative of this very minute acknowledging that our students aren't back yet? I think it would depend on which stakeholder you ask.
I think if you're an outside, we call those in graduate education, external stakeholders perhaps. They're not necessarily internal or they're not automatically impacted every day. But if you just read that, that's pretty enthusiastic and I think it's very positive. This is also posted. So I read through it, Fluco's Inspire 2030. I love this idea of shared core values and focus on maximizing potential and talent, culture, transformative relationships. Yeah, certainly inspirational.
Yeah, I was at the new teacher orientation. This is what Don kind of emphasized during this new teacher orientation when I was there.
Good. So not only is this posted, it's being communicated.
Oh,
It was his launch pad for the
Yes.
entire day.
Family.
Yeah.
With the two of us.
Yeah. So if you think about that, you know, communication's two-way, but also if you think about this idea of what you are promoting, you are kind of what you promote.
And I'm pretty sure convocation next Friday will probably be the same, similar message to the staff.
Yeah, it is showing this teamwork, unity and community theory behind it. The stakeholder, all to your external stakeholders were there. I walked out of that new teacher orientation last week pretty amazed at the snapshot of the community that attended. You had school board members, board of supervisor members, either the elected official or representation of every elected office in the community, social services, director of social services, child protective services.
Commonwealth attorney?
Commonwealth, the assistant Commonwealth taught at it with
That's
social
awesome.
services, about mandated reporting
Yeah.
and how well we all work together as cogs in the wheel. I was very, very unity oriented to this new staff to say we're a family here, and like you doing your part is helping us do our part.
And there's a commitment to continue that, like, so you're setting the stage with the newest employees, of which I have one of my students from Nelson who was in that group. I can't wait to talk to her about it. How did it go? How'd you feel? Da, 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 da. Well, when she was in contact with me, she had 3 interviews set up, and her first interview was with Fluvanna. She canceled the next 2 interviews because she had such a great experience interviewing here, which is a badge of honor for you. So that's really positive to hear. And it takes planning to do that, but then it takes a little bit more than just planning to make it a reality, right? Saying it and making it a reality are 2 different things at times. So just a review of what your mission, vision statements are, what they should be, excuse me. So I added this, I had this slide afterwards, and I thought I would put it up here. This is what, again, we teach, we talk about this in graduate education, aspiring administrators. We talk about this being a North Star guiding type of thing. So mission statement explains what an organization does today, who it serves, and how it delivers value. A vision statement really describes the future the organization wants to create and the long-term impact it hopes to achieve. Now, we talk about vision, right? Looking out over the horizon. Where are we going? What do we want to be like down the road? And I often will talk about a mission statement being boots on the ground, right? The boots on the ground, the commitment that you have and what you do. So, real simple terms before we review yours with you, just as a review. Mission focuses on the present. Vision is the future. Very simple. So we align employees. You're talking about all this commitment that you just experienced, and that's a puff of great fresh air, right? It's a puff of energy to see some excitement like that with those new employees. So here's what you got. So let's think about, read it and think about it. Now I want you to turn to your closest person and say, do those things really align with where we are today? And it's like 5-10 minute conversation. So we're going to read this, think about what the preceding slide said, what it says right now. And we're not focused just on this today, so I just wanted you to think about it though. So turn to your partner and talk about it for 5-10 minutes. And you may say, I don't like either one of them, or you may say, I really like this one, I don't like this one, they're both fine.
You guys can start.
Oh, absolutely. The guiding question.
Well, I think students
Whether or not these 2 short statements represent our mission and our vision.
impact on their lives.
I feel like what he showed before the language is
be successful.
both maybe how we try to practice, but also our like long-term vision. I don't think we always like hit the nail on the head, but I do think that they align with both our best intent and most of our practices. I feel like there are moments where we don't like put on the lens of inclusion, or like where it's not as forefront as it needs to be. Then not all of our decisions are made by holding ourselves accountable to that statement, maybe. I mean, we're not perfect beings, right? I do think our mission is to maximize potential. So like, do we have programs and or do we think our education system and our employment ultimately aims at and tries to and moves in the direction of maximizing people's outcomes? I think we do. I think our vision of equipping students for life is right. I think that we can do more through some of the things that fell by the wayside during the COVID years. Like when we heard Pete, we were talking a lot about project-based learning, and those are the things that all the board members were really excited by. And I feel like we haven't done quite as much of that we've had a lot of conversations around career and technical education programs. I don't think that we,
Didn't go
what
to
have we
college,
added?
I could have.
Like, let's get back to it, man. Like, we should be exploring, and I asked for this some odd months ago, and it kind of didn't come back. I know I'm being recorded and all that, but like, we've mentioned a handful of times of wanting sort of to dive deeper or dig deeper into career and technical education, especially the like net benefit and or long-term payoff of college goes down as costs rise. Like, okay, well, dear God, let's recognize that like not everyone's going to college and make sure that we get the right programs.
So you've been around longer than I have.
I think we can be doing some external things too. It doesn't need to come from like from within the kids, right? Like the students may or may not have an idea of what the like job market is like and what skills they need. Yeah, that's a like the demand side from the students is necessary in order to perpetuate programs. But to like identify what we might want to invest in, like we should look at. So what are the job openings? What does the market look like? What are other solutions offering? What would it take logistically to start doing network? Like maybe they can't work with the pool, the refrigerant and stuff, but like maybe they can do other things, right? Like I don't know. It's like, do you work with a hot box when you're teaching kids electrical, right? But like, you know, out of sort of like HVAC, plumbing, electrical, so on and so forth. Like we should, yeah, the classic mechanic stuff. Like I feel like we maybe need an external gap analysis of sort of like job, like, and you look at these like third party or secondary, like what are sort of like the job growth trajectory, and then like what is the supply or undersupply of current trainees, and how can we fill a gap that makes our kids like prepared to like fill a real gap in the marketplace. I feel like we should be investing in that. And I feel like we've talked about it.
Well, how do we get there?
2 months a year, every darn year, and like that doesn't get kids trained up and ready for the workplace. So like I feel a little bit, especially as I like
Okay, we're gonna come back
find
together
my
in 3
own
minutes.
campaign stuff. I'm like, I've been talking about CTE for 7 years.
Right.
We haven't changed a darn thing, and that accountability is hard to swallow. But
There
also
are
like,
instances.
we can change this.
I think that
Yeah, I think mine is
that dynamic is shifted. And I think that there's a lot of.
Well, the facilities, like, allegedly we have a facility study. I haven't seen it yet. I need to see it.
You know, people might say that doesn't happen.
It does. It 100%
When I was
does.
born.
I haven't seen the facilities. Have you seen it yet?
No.
So,
I'm just talking about
Keep your skills up and all.
probably the last couple of weeks.
mhm.
My little brother and I was 2.
Yeah, there's definitely some like safety and cleanup stuff, and maybe that safety that comes into the new role that we just announced. But
That's not the norm.
yeah, we need to do more on that front.
Okay, 1 minute.
But when I was in high school,
We have to.
Yeah, and like we've pulled back from a lot of it. Some of it requires infrastructural build out and like real capital expense. Some of it might not. Some of it might need sort of like public-private partnerships and or like partnering with businesses. Like, but we've been talking about it for too long. We need like let's go and find gap analyses and price this stuff out. Like, there's no reason why next year we shouldn't be able to offer a new program if we want to. We have to be intentional. Okay, let's do it. We're not gonna get arguments from some of our colleagues here. Like,
let's think of 2 programs.
we have to prioritize it. Do you mind if I sneak to the men's room real quick in between?
You're good.
I'll be right back.
I was just talking to one of my cousins the other day. It's a different world here. I went to school.
Right.
My dad, she was home when we got home from school. A lot of kids aren't like that anymore. But landscape
Yep.
kids.
I absolutely agree. And I think that has been one of the largest demographic shifts in this need for local candidates to work, to afford life. So, and then they inherently just rely so much more on the schools. So the schools, that's the end of the line, right? They just have to absorb it. If they don't, the only person that fails is the student, the child. And so I think that has just become such a normalized theory. But how do we fix it?
They expect it.
I agree there's some entitlement thoughts in the younger generation of parents.
Well, I was brought up completely different because of my father, you got what you worked for.
I brought up saying that I don't fit in often now because parents my age. But again, Libby and I both our fathers were law enforcement. They were a single income provider for the family. My dad always makes jokes that they had to my mom had to tape his picture on the fridge so no one knew what our dad looked like because he was working 20 hours a day because he was running a carpentry and construction business on the side.
I'll tell you a funny story. Early on, when I was born in Norfolk, my dad worked for a big construction company, but sometimes
How much rain did you guys
go
get?
away. He went to the for 6 months.
So nice
When
to
he
see
came
you.
home, he came home. Slept during the night, and he was up in bed.
South
He
Carolina.
went up there and looked at him. He said, Chucky? Chucky was the next door neighbor.
That's my last week.
That's good. I mean, I was growing up. I was gonna go into carpentry and construction. That was daycare. So when I started kindergarten, it was half day, and so I would go to a job site with my dad.
Good thing back there.
And then my mom would pick me up there and take me to kindergarten for the afternoon. I was 6 years old and I had a job site. It was daycare. I would just hang out next to my dad and started picking up tools. We did a field trip on 29 dormers on a house and talking about the flashing around the windows. Our kindergarten teacher's like, what's going on? But I just, it's been a passion of mine forever, and then kind of fell into law enforcement, following my dad, and military. I get it. It's a different world, man. Just, but working it, just see the need. I see the need for these kids to take care. It's tough for me to just draw that line. Or where, like you said, where does that line exist? We started pushing insurance.
All right, we're going to come back together, and you are going to share what your partner said. So we're going to find out who's a good listener. So Andre's going to share what James said. James is going to share what Andre said, and vice versa. All right?
Man, I don't know.
The highlights. The highlights.
Okay. I guess James says that he believes that we do most of the stuff. It's just, there's some things that we sometimes don't get around doing. We talked about, for example, like K-TEP programs that we've been talking about.
Can't have enough of them.
Yeah, but we've been talking about implementing more of them, but we want to make it our goal this budget session to be intentional.
Yeah, and in addition to that, while I was eavesdropping, going to get my coffee, it was about aligning those with job
Yes.
vacancies, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
And also interested kids.
Yeah.
And I was also sharing when I was in high school, we had all those programs at Fluvanna. Right around where the bus part is around the back of the school, the bus office and stuff.
And for somebody like me, that's the only high school I knew. Because I went on to Louisa and then Nelson and then UVA and then JMU, so I know the high school as what you and I experienced. So that is just reflective though of where you were and being different from where you are now. So I join you with that memory that's so pleasant, but that's where we have it. It was all right there next to the baseball field.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, James, what did Andre say?
Yeah, so Andre and I had a conversation around sort of like the difference between like being intentional and using, do the previous statements really reflect what we do today versus are they aspirational? And it's a mix. And so we were talking about CTE as an example of intentionality and in terms of like equipping our students for life. I'll note that out of my 7 years, I feel like 3 months a year we talk about career and technical education programs and what we might be able to offer our students, and we bemoan changes with K-Tech and with CTE and all of that. But I'll note that we also, 3 times a year talk about whether or not we should be adding career and technical education programs. We sort of like take it as an action item to think more about it, but like we haven't done it in 7 years. And so like one of the things that Andre and I said, and it's on camera, is that we're committed to actually advancing this. And so that means that we need real gap analysis in terms of like the job market, both like the growth trajectory of jobs, the supply and demand for those roles. We need to overlay that with what the competitive set of K-12 institutions are offering for CTE. So we should be looking at the job market for signals. We should be looking at what other what other divisions are doing for career and technical education. We should be coupling that with sort of like student demand and interest, and then finding ways in a world in which inflation and the cost of education are continually crunching the like long-term benefit of higher education. Our kids need to be able to have a life and a career and work and live in our communities, and so we need to make sure that we are offering programs that meet that burden. And so to that end, like we got some research and work to do in order to like make some recommendations about how we might bolster our offerings to ensure that our kids are successful. And it's been a lot of lip service for a lot of years, and I'd like to I think Andre and I are agreed that we need to not only prioritize it, but like do the work. And it's going to be a multi-step thing, and it's going to cost money, and we got to think about public-private partnerships. But it is we are remiss not to do it. And every time I think about elections and campaign literature and all of those things about what I wanted to accomplish when I came on this board, which was being running for office in 2019, just before COVID. Those were among them, and they haven't changed as a priority, but we haven't made as much progress on that as we have other priorities, like hiring a mental health coordinator. So it's this is a personal and collective accountability. If we believe in it, then we should be putting some pen to paper here.
Okay, let's go to the other side of the table. Sean?
Hope I didn't
Charles?
misrepresent you.
Go for it.
All right, I'll go ahead and start. I talked to Sean and Josh both some. I know it's a different world we live in, with the mother is usually not home or not always home like it was like when I grew up, when I got home from school. But the kids do have a lot of opportunity in schools, a lot of stuff presented to them to learn, but maybe like myself, they don't apply themselves like they should. I didn't. I wasted time in high school, but and also Sean and I talked, about child care. When a mother can't, it costs more to live now. Both parents have to work, but then child care gets so expensive. Like it was in my household, my wife had to quit her job because we had 3 kids, and it cost more to take care of them than it did that she was making. So.
Okay.
Yeah, so pivot a little bit because I'll talk about my side of that. So we did discuss the dynamic of the family and how that plays a role, different concept and thought process. We could talk about this one slide all day, but we talked about the strides that we have made in investment into students, especially in this community, through the mental health coordinator positions, through the attendance coordinator positions. Just in my line of work, I have watched so many students that have been slipping through cracks. Those things be uncovered because we started kind of sticking our noses in and saying, hey, why aren't you showing up to school? Oh, because you don't have a parent here with you that's making you get on the bus or that's driving you to school in the morning. And it's whether it be poverty issues or domestic violence exposure or substance abuse. And we have started to uncover so many bigger picture problems that we're now just pouring ourselves into to fix those students to maximize their potential that has just gone unabated forever. That I mean, in at least 16 years that I've been in this community. And so that was where our discussion went on what we're doing at the school level. And I think that, to Charles's point, a difference in the dynamic of the family now is life's expensive.
Yeah.
Life's crazy. Most of the time, gone is the one working income in a household. And so what that does is puts strain on the school system, because if the school system doesn't step up and help and absorb those extra needs or responsibilities or whatever you call it, who is the only one that really suffers? It's the student. And so as the last stopgap, the school doesn't do it, who is? And so that was where our conversation was really driving.
Yeah, lots of really rich conversation. I actually just overheard this when I talked about what I heard very quickly going to get coffee. So, if you really unwrap this, in education ease, we talk about lots of ways to diagnose this. So potential can mean a lot of things, but I think when you put these together, they certainly have intentionality, right? The idea that this is what we're committed to, and this is our vision. And so what you have to think about, at least today and moving forward, are you happy with this? And does it reflect the current state of things in regards to what you value and what you are promoting out there on the web? So under your strategic planning, you have your core values, and these things I read and thought, this is worthy of putting up there so that you could, sorry about that, just trying to get them all up there at one time, that you have core values. First of all, you have some. 2, you're promoting those and communicating about them. 3, I'm assuming you evaluate how this works for you, right? How does this work for you? I've mentioned high school, elementary, primary, but I've not mentioned the middle school. Like, let's say the middle school team, do they certainly believe in others when it comes to the top T word here, but down here, are they doing this in action? Like, is that something parents appreciate, or they don't think it's any of your business, or is it something parents were a part of when it comes to these are the minimum? What do you think, Pete? I'm gonna put you on the spot, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
What do you think?
Well, these core values are, I would say they're still kind of relatively new.
Yeah, okay.
We worked on these first at the leadership level, and then involved larger groups of stakeholders, went out into the schools. I think just last year was the first time we were able to actually put some investment into promoting them. Meaning like posters and charts and some graphics. The key,
show up and go to school and be reliable.
The key for us, and honestly, Josh and Don, they were on this team that initially did this. The key for us was to make sure that we had something that was actionable and was defined. Like, what does it look like? Nobody would argue with trust. Everybody has trust as a value, but what do we mean by that? What does it look like when we're trustworthy? What does it look like? So I think probably, the fact that this was the lead in our new teacher orientation.
It's present.
I didn't plan that, and I wasn't even there.
But
I think it's definitely something that permeates
yeah.
the schools. Do I think that every parent and every student would say, oh, I see that all the time? No, I don't think we're there yet.
Oh, each and every family too, right? Think about this in terms of their own family. Go ahead.
Do we envision this fundamentally replacing, last year walking around the elementary school, I would see, the 5 C's or 4 C's or whatever it is, which is an easy mnemonic for littles, and
Yeah.
they exist and are manifested on the walls. Do we expect these to fundamentally replace those so they become shared vernacular?
That is a great question, and it's something that this might be a rabbit trail, but it's something that I have struggled with even just this summer to know what the right answer is for that. Every time I see a T-shirt that a school designs that has a slogan that isn't what you just saw, there's a part of me that feels like we're not there yet, right? Why don't we have a common? There's another part of me that thinks it's a healthy thing for a school and a faculty to come together and to create their own, not version of this, but their own sort of, this is going to be our motto, this is going to be our acronym, whatever it is. I don't know the right answer to that. I guess if I had to fall down on one side of that fence right now to just Pete Gretz, I would like for us to just have one mission, one vision, one set of core values, one, mnemonic, whatever it is. I think that would be helpful, at least to get everybody understanding it and speaking it, and that to become the standard by which we measure all of our behavior.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we might think a little more about doing, and the staff does a decent amount of this, I see it manifested in a lot of the collateral that we see, but back when I would run a segmentation for a business, and then we would want people to understand what the research did and socialize it and bring it to life. To be honest, we'd stick posters in the bathroom. We'd stick posters, you walk out of the elevator and boom, we have whether it's a cartoon or a graph or a slide, a manifestation of the thing that we're trying to make the shared common language. And so, and I've seen I've seen actually a decent amount of artwork and such that sort of brings these to bear. But if we want it both top down and bottom up, then we have to do the bottom up bit, right? And I don't know exactly, these are hard concepts for littles, right?
Sure.
Does a kindergartner know what integrity means? Should they? Is that a term or a shared language that we use with the littles? And so that makes it hard, but respectful and honest, I'm pretty sure those are words we use routinely.
It's a great thing to discuss. I think, as I think about last year's convocation was arguably, at least I think if you talk to most of our staff, they'll say it was the best they had experienced. It was the one that was sort of turned over to the staff, and the leadership had less to do with it. And it was the staff's response to this. Our convocation speaker was somebody that was one of our employees that just said, I would like to talk about these core values.
And
So
I think a lot of the artwork that I mentioned, or manifestation,
by the
came
staff.
from the convocation bit.
So I think it's
Okay.
I don't know if I ever answered
Yeah,
that
no.
question.
This
I think we're getting there.
No, this is rich discussion about things that are very important to you. If you talk about your core values, talking about them is important, but doing them or something else. I just happen to be getting some estimates on some work I have at my home, and it's amazing when you talk with a representative from the company who's giving you an estimate on work, and the ones that talk about quality and the ones that talk about lower price, or we can't even get to you until the spring of next year. Thank you for coming by. But everybody wants something done yesterday, right? So I use that because there's a different conversation depending on your audience. So you as a board collectively thinking about your audience, about how do you help move an audience forward past COVID, past all this daily stuff, even though the daily part of it is extremely important because you're defining it, you're focusing on it, you're evaluating it, you're keeping some numbers about it to reflect on. But you're the model. I also see relationships are important, work ethic is important, optimism is important. Nothing gets accomplished without a positive working relationship in general. Now, there are some times you have to have negative conversations with people, but in leadership, what do we call those? Growth opportunities. We grow from them, right? One way or the other. And I've had them with me, and I've had them with others. But Relationships are the cornerstone of what you focus on here, according to what you have published in my experience. There's this idea of work ethic and optimism. I love them. You know, when you define this, how do you define it? I see that as a potential struggle in terms of when you define it, you have to evaluate it, right? What is a high level? That might mean something different to a student who's taking an AP course as opposed to somebody who's taking a course that is not an AP course.
Was there evaluative judgment on that?
We have behaviors that, for us, defined each one of these.
Okay.
But
And were you have you been happy with them? And again, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, just
Yeah.
generally.
I definitely think so. I think again, the challenge after you go through something like this, you know, speaking for myself, but
Yeah.
the larger team that was initially part of this, before we ever presented it in the schools, I wouldn't say that all of these core values were the ones that we all would have written had we written them. These were the ones that we all could coalesce and agree on.
Yeah, right.
And so then we went through a pretty painstaking process, some of which happened in this very room, to agree on what that
Is this a
looked like.
school improvement concept?
No,
No?
this was just a process of, you know, developing a charter, if you will.
Yeah.
What do we believe? What's
Yeah.
non-negotiable for us? What are our core values? So for work ethic, we said exceeding expectations, being intrinsically motivated, taking initiative, and holding yourself to high standards. That's what we said that would look like.
Yeah. And then I note there are multiple goal areas with
Yeah.
objectives and strategies outlined. I didn't want to get into that today, but just generally speaking, you have those, which are important.
Well, I would say, you know, obviously there's blinders for individual parents, right? Of do they see that every single day, right? Because they're looking at their student in their class, their child, their everything in that fifth grade class with that teacher. From an objective 30,000 foot view, when anybody here walks through the schools, we are meeting these core values every single day. Just the positivity and the optimism that exudes from the an administration standpoint, from our teachers, we are absolutely meeting these. To your point, if this is qualitative, maybe not for all age ranges, and that's a workshop, right? You figure that all out. If the littles don't know what work ethic means, there's other ways to get that core value across to them at their age. I do think that this district is doing a very good job of meeting these core values.
And if you've never been in a kindergarten classroom and watched magic happen, the best kindergarten teacher can fully define, what does this mean? What does this mean? And they can break it down because they are wonderful at what they do for the most part in terms of breaking language down for the littles.
For the record, I'm not negative on our school division.
No,
Or
I didn't know, I know.
I think I'm self-reflective and tough on myself and others.
Yeah.
And so, like, I don't think there's ever a world in which I would jump up and down and be like, we do all of this perfectly. And so I just want to make
agree.
sure that everybody knows that my tone is not like loaded and or negative. It's just reflective.
And working with kids is tough.
It is, isn't it?
I'm not envious of that position. No, I know. And I didn't take it that way. I just, I was really focusing on like a couple more bigger words, like how do we get that across to, you know,
Totally.
younger students. Was more so where I was going with that. I didn't take it negatively. We all work for a living. We've all had bad days at work, right? You have a conversation with a teacher who's ticked off about something. I get it. You're allowed to have bad days at work, but in the, like I said, that overarching 30,000 foot view, I mean, my brain goes back to the back to school bash, and it's all smiles. Goes to the Central Elementary Day up in the parking lot up there that they do every year. That every single teacher is out there in matching t-shirts, laughing, having a blast on a Saturday. It's like those events that just resonate in my brain of that optimism and work. And it literally, in one of those events, you can check every single box that are.
The student recognition we have.
Mhm. Yeah.
It's funny, I actually think we anchor too much on work ethic. I'm pretty sure you all have heard me say this. The number of times, including when the state superintendent came in to do workshops, the number of times I hear our staff talk about the strength of our community and our division being the number of hats that they wear, and the fact that when there's like a vacancy or something isn't getting done, that people like jump to do it, is both a strength and a weakness. Because I feel like this whole like doing more with less is like, it's great like within reason, right? Like, okay, this isn't getting funded or done, we can find ways to do this. Like I can do a little bit more here, or we can like maybe repurpose that. That's awesome. A world in which everybody thinks that like being a team player is having 6 or 7 roles or hats to wear as like our norm or like North Star is problematic. And so like sometimes I feel like we maybe hang our hats too much on work ethic and ask people to do too much for too little, and in ways should find the appropriate staffing for some of the things that we do. I think there's a lot, especially our senior staff, that are absolutely overburdened, and like it's actually a weakness of our division and of our staffing model that people anticipate having to play that many roles.
You know, when I hear this rich and valuable conversation, I think about the other C word, culture. I often will talk with people about things one-on-one or in a building, or when we promote leadership roles. What's the culture within the building? What's the culture within the division? What's the culture in the community? So you're really affirming your culture. I hear some really positive comments. By the way, you've just sat through a block schedule class, right? People will often say, oh, what's it feel like to sit through a block schedule class? This is pretty evident with regard to time that you've sat through a block class. So when somebody's teaching in a block, we think about engagement, rich discussion, getting things accomplished and all that. So I always think it's important to point it out when we get to that point. So we're not going to go over your strategic plan. There's a great link here if you want to go to this and look at it. It's excellent. But when I think more about what's posted, this is what I see. It's about the kids, right? And if people aren't talking about the kids, and it's the team effort and the individuals that behind that, each and every individual supporting the kids, then you worry that the main thing is not the main thing, right? So we talk about the main thing being the work, the kids, the effort, but also the culture. So just in review, I know the chairman wanted to talk about this a little bit. We do not have to talk about it right now because we're getting ready to break for lunch, but just as a little bit of step into the norms, a norming process, if you've never been through this in a business or a church or a nonprofit or a group of people who are trying to accomplish something, it could be a small group of people, or it could be thousands of employees. Basically, rules that govern, guidelines, how a team interacts with one another and with external individuals. So another way to phrase this, group norms are a set of agreements about how members will work with each other. Agreed upon behaviors, like I love that part because they're agreed upon by everybody. Collective performance through healthy debate and clarity of purpose. So in talking with Pete, we were talking about clarity. It's so nice to have this conversation around, you know, what role should I play? What part of the process do I like or not like? So norms are a way that you can work through this and communicate with each other without, I once had a boss one time, I thought he was so good, he could step all over your feet without messing up your shoe shine. That's actually what I told his wife after he passed, and we were talking about it. I said, he was pretty rough on me, but boy, was he great at being able to help me improve and get better. So norms are about pathways of constructively doing things. Now, I have your norms, but we're not going to get into them until after lunch. But this allows you to realize your full potential. I like the word culture, and you know, we're not going to go through and evaluate your culture today because I think you're on the right path with that and you feel good about it, generally speaking. So being a member of a highly effective team can improve the culture through norms. So any thoughts on norms before we break for lunch?
Just wanted to revisit them. I just think that it's important to have guidelines. Just when things come up, how should we proceed at the board?
I think norms are hard in elected boards, right? So one, they're broadly unenforceable. So like we don't have any, we as a collective board don't have any like power and or solutioning to one another. We're all independent, we all come independently here from our districts. And therefore what one sees as their like vision or goal from holding elected office might differ from another. And you know, this board has some ugly history with regards to sort of like norming and holding one another accountable. I know that there was some strife between the Fork Union and the Ravenna districts once upon a time in terms of who speaks for a board, who speaks to press, whether or not a message given by an individual represents the voice of the collective, whether or not if one sort of like steps aside from and or acts counter to our normative behaviors, what is of consequence and or like is that publicly admonished in some way? And so like norms are awesome and we need a way to like communicate and to work together and to have like behaviors that we see as like conducive to that. The other side of the coin is even though they're important, like I don't think that we have sort of like recourse when they're violated.
Yeah, I've never really thought of, it's an interesting point you bring up, James. I've never thought of norms that people agree to and adhere to as being punitive in any way. I've thought about it as not aspirational, but maybe just a notch below that operationally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it's a good topic. You read about things happening with other boards, not in Fluvanna County.
Keep reading.
So I couldn't help but like press the button again. Role clarity is so important, right? In terms of, especially when you get into sensitive areas.
I don't devalue the norms because they're unenforceable. I just acknowledge the like two sides of it. Like,
Well, I think we're at a point where I think that we all get along and function as a board, where we can come up with some norms, some guidelines, and some clarity.
Yeah, with guidance, we're allowed to disagree.
Yes.
Respectful disagreements and have constructive discourse that follows that.
But like who speaks to the media?
Right.
Do we all speak to the media?
I'm not sure I'm not confident that any member of this board has been on the record with the newspaper in years.
Well, it could happen tomorrow.
It could.
I should call them outside. No, I agree. I think it's a good conversation to have at a minimum.
So up here, all of this should influence your norms, right? So collectively, as you kind of digest what you've experienced today, not just read, but experienced, these influence your norms, right? And ideally, this is ideally, right? Norms contribute to accomplishing these things. I like the word encourage. Doesn't always fall within the realm of our reality currently. We have, generally speaking, a society now that can disagree publicly, and it can get ugly. But again, you're a board of high performance standards, both personally and professionally, and I think you can set that tone for people. By the way, before we go to lunch, did you notice these small things right here on the cushion? Anybody see these? I think it's so interesting. The ball that fell down and was turned upside down was family. Like, it's so interesting. When you are a board member, these three things often come into play and they can add stress to your role. So in thinking about these things, work, family, and civic, in doing this with another school division, I was reminded there should be a fourth ball up here. I won't say what that person said it was, but I listened. I did not add the ball because it's only specific to that board member. But do you ever find yourself in conflict with these or struggling with these roles? Yeah?
It's a joke, man.
Jug? It's a, what else? Say more. Say more.
I mean, they fundamentally compete for a zero-sum number of hours in your day.
But it's that big paycheck you get, right, every month?
Oh, from this place?
Yeah, the school
Yeah.
board, right?
To be fair, we are well compensated, and none of us are here for, as far as I know, a paycheck. Certainly, I could not live on it.
Other people, you find conflict, you struggle with this sometimes as a board member. You'll never get this conversation at a formal school board meeting, I can tell you, but it's okay to share here. I know superintendents struggle with these three things, and the fourth ball, and the fifth ball, and the sixth ball.
Yeah, I think your role, you know, I'm personally not a believer that who you are changes. I mean, my core values go with me wherever I am, but your role can be so different in these different areas that it can be hard to do those things. I just think about me as a superintendent and parent, even just that. I mean, it can be really valuable.
Yeah.
I get a lot of intel about this organization that not just from my family, but just my experience.
Yeah.
I read the letters that I send out to people.
Yep.
You know, so that can be good, but at the same time, you know, a parent's role is different than a superintendent's role, and so I think it can be difficult sometimes.
Charles, do you ever find struggle within these?
Sure. One day I got home from work. I wasn't in there a minute. The phone rang. Oh, I have caller
Oh,
ID.
no.
It was one of my cousins. He wanted to complain about one of the principals. So, yeah, I knew I was in trouble.
Andre?
Yeah, I mean, I had a son that just graduated, like Dr. Pete said. I mean, you get, and you know, you get information. What do you do with it?
Whether you want it or not.
Or there's a lot of things he won't even tell you. And you know, you're the chairman, you're a coach, you have to go to his games, you know, I'm coming to a board meeting.
A mentor.
The mentor,
You're
you're
mentoring all
leaving to
them.
get to a game at halftime. This is a lot of competing interests. And it just going from a regular board member to the chairman. I mean, it's just like Pete said, different roles you have to play each step.
Yeah. And Sean went from no kids to kids.
Yeah.
Two working with the sheriff's office. I
Yeah.
have called Dr. Gretz and said, "Hey, Sean," I said, "Nope, this is Sergeant Brendan calling. I have to have a conversation with you." And he's like, "Oh, okay." And like the whole.
So you changed hats very quickly.
Yep. And so it's a constant juggling and walking on the right side of the line at
Yep.
that point.
To Sean's credit, he's remarkably fastidious about articulating which role he's in at any
I
given
told everybody, save my phone number separately. Depends on what phone I call you from. No, I do, and that's important to me. But it is a balancing act, and with the young family, with my military obligations. You know, I was in on the budget seminar. It was 3.5 hours back in February on a Zoom call from the Middle East. So, which would have been 11 p.m. local time, then 3 hours from there. So after I screwed up all the emailing from Central Asia, but neither here nor there. But no, it is a tough thing to do, and I think a lot of people, until you're in a role like that where you have to bounce back and forth and juggle things, don't realize it or overlook it, or.
I think it's okay to, in this setting, to commiserate a little bit, but also understand that we're human beings and what we do each day matters. You are making a difference. I talk about these and I carry them with me because whenever I struggle with this, you know, my wife will say, "You better get out that green ball." And I'm like, how does she know what the green ball says? Guess who put that on there? She remembered, because to us, all these other things are second. But when you think about it, they're woven together so intricately that we can't separate ourselves from them. But I just thought putting those up there to recognize that you're doing really good work here. You've already been in a retreat board development session for half a day. Give yourselves a hand. Now, we're going to break for lunch, if that's okay. Yes, Sean.
I just had one thing for everybody that's important about that last statement. On the way here this morning,
Green ball?
Well, the balls, the 3 balls, dropping the girls off and catching up with my wife for about 10 seconds on the phone between her meetings, me dropping the girls, running to the gym quick. She called me and she's like, "What are you doing today?" It's like, it's on our calendar. We just spent a weekend away together. You know what I'm doing. And until 8:43 this morning, she had no idea that this was even for the school board. She thought that this was like a retreat for the sheriff's office. Like, in her brain, it is all just this big web of Sean's away working. So to your point at the end, that they're so interwoven that up until 17 minutes before walking through the door here, she had no idea which hat this was even for. Just
Yeah.
knew I was working all day over at the lake.
And that mom superpower had everything else organized, but that one piece of
It's on the calendar.
It's on the calendar.
The right calendar now?
No, the right calendar. That's another
Time
part
for
of it.
lunch, Brandon. Thank you for your morning.
Thank you.
Guess we break for lunch.